Wacky news for the week ending October the 5th, 2012. In a Chevrolet Silverado pickup, 52-year-old Jamie Manga drove from his home in Chino to San Clemente, California, about a 110-mile trip. When he stopped, he felt his truck move. He got out of his truck to see what's going on, and he saw fur hanging above the front tire on the driver's side. When he opened the hood of the truck, he found a 25-pound dog on top of the engine. Micah said he had seen the dog in his neighborhood before. With the outside temperature being close to 100 degrees that day, Micah called for help. When the animal control officer arrived, she put the dog, now nicknamed Chevy, into her air-conditioned truck, and he perked right up. Back on September the 20th, a mixed-breed female poodle named Susie ran in front of a car in Taunton, Massachusetts. The driver of the car slammed on the brakes, but didn't see Susie and continued to drive to East Providence, Rhode Island, about 11 miles away. Another driver saw the dog wedged in the grill of the car. Animal control officers called, and they were able to free Susie, who suffered a concussion and minor injuries. Well, this week, Susie was reunited with her owners, who happened to see a news story about the incident. They presented animal control officers with veterinary papers giving Susie's microchip number. In Orem, Utah, a man called the police and told them that he was getting a call on his cell phone from his home phone, and he heard banging and scratching noises on the line and thought it was an intruder. The police went to the man's house, but nothing was missing or broken. Later that day, the man called the police and told them he figured out what had happened. His dog had taken the handset off the phone and must have hit redial when he was burying it in the backyard. A 66-year-old truck driver, Rudy Brenneman, was driving a load of honeybees from Bruce, South Dakota to California. When he was just east of Tonopah, Nevada, he pulled his rig off to the side of the road. The flatbed truck began to sink into the soft shoulder dirt, then tipped over and caused several of the beehives to break open. The firefighters who tried to contain the bees with water, the state troopers and sheriff's deputies, were all stung by the angry bees before beekeepers could arrive. As for the truck owner, he wasn't hurt and wasn't cited for the incident. Police in Podolsky, Michigan, had some unneeded and unwanted help by a man dressed as Batman. 33-year-old Mark Williams showed up where police were trying to find a driver who had fled from an accident scene. State Police Sergeant Jeff Gorno said he wouldn't clear the scene, and we had a canine out there, and he kept screwing up the scent. We didn't want the dog to track Batman instead of the driver of the accident scene, and he was getting in the way of the officers who had a job to do. Williams was charged with resisting and obstructing police in an investigation. She said she felt it was important to serve and not use her position as an excuse to get out of jury duty. So last Thursday in Ebensburg, Pennsylvania, Cambria County Judge Linda Fleming was one of 120 people who reported for jury duty. In the orientation video shown to the potential jurors, Fleming is one of the 5 judges in the video that explains the process. Fleming said that a woman who was sitting next to her didn't recognize her in the video. The 36-member panel assigned to the criminal case included Fleming, but she was dismissed after one of the attorneys objected to her being seated as one of the case's 12 jurors. And by the way, she didn't take the $9 jurors are paid for the day. Some people just amaze me. After a breakup with a boyfriend, 42-year-old Jennifer Colwell of Dana Point, California, tried to burn down a lingerie store, Intimate Obsessions, where her ex had purchased her some undergarments. She stuffed the intimate gifts in a pillowcase, took it to the store, soaked the pillowcase with gasoline, and lit it in an effort to burn the business down. Firefighters were able to put the fire out before it entered the store. And wouldn't you guess it, Colwell has pleaded not guilty to felony arson. In Almena, Michigan, a Van Buren County Sheriff's deputy pulled a pickup truck over for a defective plate, but the 28-year-old driver took off, which was the beginning of a high-speed chase of more than 100 miles per hour. The driver lost control, flipping the pickup over. The man scrambled out of the truck and took off on foot. With the help of a Kalamazoo police dog, he was tracked down and found to be hiding in a hot tub under the cover. The unnamed man was arrested for fleeing police, resisting arrest, driving with a suspended license, and operating a vehicle under the influence of drugs. In Boulder, Colorado, 73-year-old Brenda Gears drove to her church to attend an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. When she got there, she collided with a food truck, hit 17-year-old University of Colorado student Eric Anderson, and finally stopped when she hit the covered entryway of the church. The student suffered a punctured lung and broken ribs. As for Gears, she was arrested on suspicion of drunken driving and vehicular assault. Now, why was she drinking if she was going to an AA meeting? Then in Helena, Montana, 30-year-old Clancy Williams was arrested and charged for DUI at about 3:30 a.m. Tuesday and later released. Less than 24 hours later, at about 1:40 a.m. Wednesday, police received a call about a 54 Chevrolet Bel Air being stolen from a mechanic's garage. Police found Williams driving the Chevy and arrested him again for DUI as well as felony theft, driving with a suspended license without insurance. In Tamarack, Florida, 28-year-old Daniel Nelson lost control of his 2000 Ford Focus, hitting a Mitsubishi that was stopped at a traffic light, and he just took off from the accident scene. Fortunately, a deputy was nearby and pursued Nelson. However, the deputy turned off his lights and siren and just followed Nelson because he felt Nelson's reckless driving and the amount of traffic due to it being rush hour, it was unsafe to continue his pursuit. Nelson, trying to be clever and lose the deputy, drove into a car wash. It didn't work. He was arrested for DUI and other charges. I promise, this is the last DUI story of the week. In Newcastle, Delaware, 31-year-old Samuel Phelps picked up his 7th DUI when he crashed his 1998 Land Rover into a guardrail. He told police that he swerved to avoid an elephant he saw in the road. Phelps did admit that he smoked marijuana dipped in PCP before he drove. I wonder if that elephant was pink. Sarah Butler, her 2 adult daughters, and her teenage son drove to Upper Darby High School in Meta, Pennsylvania to pick up another child. Because Butler wasn't the child's custodial parent, the student wasn't released. Well, when this happened, Butler and her family pulled off their clothes in the school's parking lot and started chanting religious phrases. Butler's attorney said an adverse medical reaction triggered the psychotic episode. It seems contradictory medications for lupus led Butler to think the world was ending. But what's the story with her kids stripping? Oh yeah, Butler and her adult daughters pled guilty Monday to indecent exposure and related charges. Someone broke into a Monroe, Michigan home while the owners were away. They made a sandwich and they stole a $25 towel rack. Nothing else but lunch meat and cheese was missing. Nothing was broken around the place but a plate left on the counter. In Olympia, Washington, a man told deputies while he was fishing he shot his .22 caliber rifle into the Deschutes River. The bullet ricocheted off a rock, hitting him in the temple. When he scratched the spot with his fingers, the bullet fell out of his head and into the river. When the man returned home, he refused to tell his girlfriend what happened, so when he left the house, she called the sheriff. Deputies found him and pulled him over, and that's when he told them his story. Now, this presidential election is really heating things up. In Hollywood, Florida, 77-year-old Peter Schwartz and his wife had gone out to dinner, and an argument began between the two of them when his wife said, "You're like my mother. You like Romney." With that, Schwartz slapped his wife in the face. She told police she ran from her husband because he was yelling at her about the candidates. During his first court appearance, Schwartz was told to stay away from his wife until the case moves to another court. 50-year-old Larry Sperling of Melbeta, Nebraska, remains in jail for assaulting his wife with a sandwich. Sperling's wife called 911 and told them he pushed her down during an argument and rubbed a sandwich in her face. Now, the court documents don't give the ingredients of the sandwich, but a deputy did find several pieces of lunch meat on the carpet outside a bedroom and some pieces of bread in the bedroom. Pot dealer 33-year-old Jeremiah Commody of Scranton, Pennsylvania, faces several drug-related charges after he tried to destroy evidence by eating a marijuana plant when authorities went to his house to serve a warrant. Police were able to get the remains of the plant plus 4 more pounds of marijuana, digital scales, $2,600 in cash, and drug paraphernalia. New Yorkers are finding ways around Mayor Bloomberg's new soda law. One person said he'd put a 32-ounce cup under his jacket, went to a movie theater, purchased 2 16-ounce drinks, went to his seat, and poured them in his 32-ounce cup. New York City Police Commissioner Raymond Kelly said he is assigning a special task force, tentatively titled the Soda Police, to catch those who promote or violate breaking the new law. Where is the ACLU when you need them? This has got to be the most unconstitutional law ever. Commissioner Kelly says the penalty for a first offense for guzzling an oversized soda is usually a verbal reprimand and or a fine of $100. Second offenses can result in fines of $200 and or 6 weeks in jail. And if you're a habitual offender, it becomes a felony and you could be looking at anywhere from 3 years to 10. Now, Bloomberg really tipped his hand when he said, this new law will help reduce obesity, reduce tooth decay, and raise a shitload of money for New York City. At the Priority Chevrolet dealership in Chesapeake, Virginia, Danny Sawyer purchased a blue Chevrolet Traverse. The next day, he returned it for a black one. The dealer's sales manager made the swap, allegedly without saying anything about a price difference between the two. Sawyer signed a final contract for around $34,000, but the vehicle he took home had an actual price closer to $39,000. Later, the dealership realized they had made a mistake and wanted Sawyer to sign a new contract. He refused, so the dealership called the local police alleging the buyer had stolen the vehicle. Police picked Sawyer up and held him for 4 hours, but the Commonwealth dropped the charges after finding insufficient evidence to pursue the case. Dennis Elmer, president of the dealership, said he owed Sawyer an apology on behalf of the dealership and had intended to do right by the buyer by letting him have the vehicle at the agreed-upon price. Sawyer's lawyer says it's a little too late for saying sorry. The briefly incarcerated Sawyer has filed 2 lawsuits against the dealer, accusing the business of malicious prosecution, slander, defamation, and abuse of process. That $5,600 price difference is a pittance compared to the $2.2 million that the suits seek in damages, plus attorney's fees. In Portsmouth, Rhode Island, an exotic dancer claimed she got a call from a man who ordered a dance, but when she got there, he refused to open his door. So she called the police and reported a theft of services. When the officer arrived, he rang the man's doorbell, but the man didn't answer the door for him either. Police Captain Mike Schwartz disputed the woman's claim that a theft had occurred. He said she never danced, so I would be hard-pressed to say it was theft of services. Now, if she was a professional doorbell ringer. He went on to say, I guess there are some people who would have better dance than others. Maybe you were expecting Mikhail Baryshnikov, and you got someone looking like Mike Schwartz. I wouldn't answer the door either. Schwartz said the responding officer determined no crime had occurred and that the dancer could pursue her complaint civilly. A bank robber, 51-year-old William Kane, while in front of the Wells Fargo Bank in St. Petersburg, Florida, called 911 for help and told officers when they arrived that he was planning to rob the bank due to his drug addiction. He also told them that he had robbed 2 other banks within the last 2 days. He was arrested on 2 armed robbery charges. A music-loving, hungry man pulled into an Auburn, Washington Jack-in-the-Box and placed his order. The clerk told the man he couldn't hear his order over the loud music. The man then pulled up to the window, pulled out a gun, and fired a shot through the window. The bullet hit the far wall, and the man sped away at high speed. No one inside the restaurant was hit, and police have information they believe will help them identify the suspect. I've told you before, don't mess with Granny. A young man tried to break into a Wilmington, Delaware home only to receive a good cane beating by a disabled woman who has a tube in her throat and moves and speaks with difficulty. The 55-year-old woman, known as Anita, said she started wielding her cane when she saw him put his foot in, his butt in, his arm in, his face in. Anita said her father told her long ago, if the Bible don't get you, the cane will get you. Police suspect the man was involved in the theft of a television from another home in the neighborhood. And on a brief final note, Jason Cantrell, 43, a New Orleans assistant city attorney, has been suspended from his job after a marijuana cigarette fell out of his pocket in front of police in the Orleans Parish Magistrate Court. That's all I have this week. Be kind to each other, and I'll see you back here next week for more wacky news.